Hello, and welcome to another video. Today we're making Safe, which is a contraption that I made for a painting to emphasize changing perspectives. Step 1, making the model. I wanted to make a little scaled down mock-up of what I wanted the frame to look like and the piece to look like in the end, and I did that with popsicle sticks, wood glue, and some Bristol board. So this mockup didn't really matter in the end because I changed the concept and the design and I think I overcomplicated it a lot, so the end product was very much simplified. But moving on to step 2, making the base. And this is what everything would be glued upon, so I wanted it to be pretty perfect. And I made a frame first, then I reinforced it with 90-degree angled nails, or these triangle nails. And it probably wasn't necessary because there were so many layers and so much glue in the end that we probably didn't need that much strength. Oh, and look at this wood glue. It was so dried and thick, but I didn't have anything else, so I just used it and I used a spreader to just get an even coat. Then I attached the surface, which was a 1/16 of an inch piece of plywood. Okay, moving on to step 3, which is making the little frame that will actually go around the painting. First, I ripped half-inch strips of alder, then I don't recommend this, but I made a horrible contraption for the Dremel to make it a little table saw, and it was frightening to use, so I don't recommend it, but it was to cut the rabbit. Then I sanded the pieces, cleaned them up, glued them together to make the frame.
Dude, if that's not a great corner, I don't know what is.
Letting it dry overnight with these right angle clips, which I totally recommend if you love making frames. They were so helpful in putting pressure when it was drying or holding it together when it was drying, which is very important. The last step was to cut a backing for the frame to hold in the painting, and I want you to remember how many times it takes me to score and cut through this plywood, because where I changed the project to, I did this so many times. But for now, put in the painting, put in the backing to see if it fits. On to step 4, making the wheels slash cogs. Oh my word, when I tell you this project, or this step actually, got me so frustrated that I had to take a month break from it. So I started this in the summer, and then I finished it during December or January. I only made one cog in the end because there was no way I was making 3 to 5 of them because I had to hand cut it. I had no bandsaw. So, step 5 is a new plan, which was not easier. It still took as much work and effort, but it was definitely more doable. So first, I turned the background into more of an abstract pattern, and I wanted to look like kind of like the geographical leveled maps. So I just made some wavy lines on the board, and then I'm transferring it onto transfer paper so I can transfer that onto each piece of wood so I can cut it out. I didn't record any of the cutting of the pieces of wood because I wanted to get this project done and I did not have the energy to film. But step 6 is testing stains and finishes. So I had one finish, but I wanted to make sure that it worked on a variety of stains, and I also didn't film staining the pieces. I just used oil and Gamsol to do that. Step 7, sanding. There were so many pieces, little pieces to sand, that I just cut it down to very little. Step 8, gluing all the layers together. So I just smeared glue on the back, and don't worry, I got new wood glue. So it was way better to work with. And then I just put paper on top of it so it doesn't damage the surface, and put weights on top so it doesn't curl or warp. Working layer by layer, each small piece gets a layer of glue and pressed on top. Sometimes I use the weights and sometimes I use binder clips if the pieces were small enough. And just rinse and repeat the process, letting the glue set for a couple hours. I didn't think it needed overnight. On to step 9, more sanding, and this was for the edges so it's flush with the whole frame, because I did leave excess and I didn't glue it perfectly, so this smoothed out all the edges. Almost to the end, let's finish the edge in step 10 using burnt umber and ultramarine blue with Gamsol. This is also the same technique I used in staining the individual pieces. Step 11, putting on the top coat. I already cleaned all my surfaces with some Gamsol and let that dry, and I put 2 layers of top coat I think, and I sanded in between because I let the layers dry overnight. And finally, we get to put all the pieces we made together. The frame, the board, the wheel, and the little clicky thing. I don't know what it's called, but I spaced it out so it was the correct tension and it would have that clicky sound with the wheel. Then I just took some wood glue to glue everything in place. Gluing the last block to hold it all in place and doing a little test turn, and we're all done. This project took me so long to complete and achieve and problem solve, but I'm really happy with how it turned out considering this was the first time that I did something like this. I usually don't work this way. I'm usually in painting and illustrating and drawing, but it was really fun to work on this project, to step outside my comfort zone, and to get to experiment with how perspective can change how you see a piece of artwork.